Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV. We are lifelong Catholics. What we do is all for free, and for our love of Jesus Christ, and for our Holy Mother, the Church. We will defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today's program is the remembrance or feast day of Servant of God, Father Leo Heinrichs, from Erklenz, Germany, who was an immigrant to the United States and was the parish priest of St. Elizabeth of Hungary for the Franciscans, and was shot and killed in 1908. We welcome Brother Alexis to the show.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV, and especially on this, the 113th anniversary of the martyrdom of Father Leo, a fellow Franciscan and a martyr of the United States. He was killed in Denver, Colorado. And when you told me about him yesterday, I was like, I've never heard of him. Why haven't we heard of him? So we looked at the day of his martyrdom, and it was the 23rd of February, 1908. We said, we have to do a show about the servant of God, Father Leo. And so this is something, before we talk about his life, we need to emphasize that we Catholics in the United States don't know the history of our church in the United States. Our clergy haven't talked to us about it, and we have some wonderful examples to inspire us, especially in the present hour, which is so dark, that we need to recall. And AJ, as founder of the Catholic Party of America, is big on finding these saints and making them the patrons of the order, because as St. Brendan was told, this land will be a land of saints, an island of saints. So let's list them. And I'm more than happy to do this program about Father Leo, a fellow Franciscan. So go ahead, AJ. Who was Leo Heinrichs?
He was born Joseph Heinrichs on August 15, 1867, in Erklenz, Rhineland, Germany. Under the persecution of Otto von Bismarck's Quarterkampf, the Franciscan chapter of St. Elizabeth of Hungary fled their monastery in Fulda and settled at St. Bonaventure's Friary in Paterson, New Jersey. Although still studying in minor seminary, Joseph Heinrichs immigrated to America with them. On December 4th, 1886, Heinrichs entered the Franciscan novitiate at St. Bonaventure's and received the monastic name Brother Leo. He took his final vows on December 8th, 1890, and was ordained to the priesthood on July 26, 1891.
That's really impressive. At the age of 17, he left his homeland and went to the United States, a land where they didn't speak German. Really zealous young man, very inspiring. And I've been to Fulda many years ago. It's a beautiful Catholic town, but when Bismarck decided to start his Kulturkampf, he wanted to destroy the power of the church in Germany, because Germany was in the process of being unified, and he wanted the Prussian kingdom to totally control everything. And he became very hostile, confiscated lots of church properties, and arrested lots of clergy. It was a crime to wear the habit, and many Catholic clergy had to flee the country. And thanks be to God, many of them came to the shores of the United States and brought the true Catholic faith to the United States. So wonderful example, the age of 17 to join the friary and get ordained at the age of 91, 64, the age of 30, 20, 21, the age of 21 to be ordained a priest, a holy young man, Franciscan. And he was a member of the Friars Minor, that's OFM. This is before the Leonine Union, so I'm not kind of clear what kind of observance they were, but very zealous. So after becoming a priest, where was he assigned?
So between 1891 to 1907, Heinrich served in various positions in the New York and New Jersey area, including the pastor at Holy Angels Parish in Signac, which is now Little Falls, New Jersey, in April 1902. A fire devastated much of Crogan, New York. Heinrichs was set to rebuild the church. The new St. Stephen's was dedicated on Thanksgiving Day, 1903. To pay down the debt, Heinrichs solicited donations in lumber camps and writes to a friend under the date of January 27, 1904. He describes his travels. I was always to the woods in order to collect among the lumbermen. I was away 4 days each time, and 2 nights I had to sleep with the men in the camps. The poor fellows have to work so hard early and late and have so little comfort. We drove 100 miles the first trip with the thermometer at 0. The second trip 20 miles one day at 40 degrees below. But covered from head to foot in fur, you don't seem to mind the cold. You have no idea how nice it is to travel through the woods on a clear day when the wind does not disturb the snow. The winter here is the severest that people remember. We had, more or less, since the beginning of December, 0 to 40 below, and the snowstorms nearly every other day make the roads almost impassable.
Really adventurous to get those donations. And you can imagine how poor the neighborhood he must have been in New York City not to be able to find the donations in the city. The lumbermen probably were Germans, and lumberjacks were paid quite well because of their hard service, and they had a lot of cash on hand personally. So that's really courageous. Friar, very zealous. They build churches for the new immigrants in the United States. And so if you're a member of these parishes that are near you, you go visit, they probably have an image of Father Leo because he's now a servant of God. So I think you just said 1903, 1904, he was in New York City. How's he end up in Denver?
Yeah. So, after he gets back to Paterson, New Jersey, he was appointed pastor of St. Bonaventure's. While at St. Bonaventure's, there was an outbreak of smallpox in Paterson, during which Heinrich spent many hours tending the sick and dying. Then after that, he was assigned to St. Elizabeth Parish in Denver, Colorado, where he arrived on September 23, 1907. As pastor, Heinrich would distribute food to the poor every morning at the friary gate. He had received permission to return to Germany to visit family after an absence over 21 years, but postponed his journey until after June 7, 1908, when he planned to give First Communion to a class of 70 children.
So he comes to the parish on the Feast of Our Lady of Mercy, and he's in the parish only 5 months. And boy, he's so zealous that to give those children First Communion that he delays seeing his own flesh and blood, who he hasn't seen for 20 years. This is a great friar. So what happens the morning 113 years ago today?
Heinrich normally celebrated the 8 a.m. Sunday Mass, but on Sunday, February 23rd, 1908, as he had a meeting scheduled that day, he switched with the priest Woolston workmen to save the 6 a.m. working Mass. He switched with the priest Woolston to take the working man's Mass at 6 a.m. Among attending Mass was a 50-year-old Giuseppe Alia, a.k.a. Giuseppe Garaccio Angelo Gabri, an employed shoemaker who had recently emigrated from Avila, Sicily. Alia took communion at the altar rail, then flung the host at the priest and drew a revolver. Seeing the gun, the altar boy tried to warn the priest, but it was too late. Heinrichs attempted to retrieve the fallen host and collapsed mortally wounded on the steps of the altar of Our Lady, and died minutes later.
Here's a priest who doesn't even think of his own life, thinks only of picking up the host. And this is a wonderful example for us Catholics in the United States, where so many disrespect the Most Blessed Sacrament. And we'll talk about the assailant later, but So he dies at the foot of the altar of Our Lady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And 1 week before his death, he preached at the Young Ladies' Solidarity meeting, remarking, "How sweet it is to die at the feet of Mary."
Truly the death of the Holy Fire. I'm all choked up by it because when Our Lady answers your prayers like that, she has a lot of love for you. And that's a pure soul, Wendy. Um, so how is it this Italian, who is this attacker and why in 1908 is a Sicilian, what's he doing in Denver with a pistol shooting a priest?
He was, well, as it says, unemployed, but he he was trying to flee, but he was stripped by parishioner E.J. Quigley, a conductor for the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad. Off-duty police officer Daniel Griffin arrested Aaliyah after a brief struggle on the church steps. At the police station, Aaliyah, who did not speak English, reportedly said, "I went over there because I had a grudge against all priests in general. They are all against the working man. I went to the communion rail because I could get a better shot. I did not care whether he was a German priest or any other kind of priest. I left Italy 3 months ago and went first to Central America and came to Denver. I am an anarchist and I'm proud of it. I shot him, and my only regret is I could not shoot the whole bunch of priests in the church."
Notice he came to the United States through Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have all the problems with immigration. But you know, he's a Sicilian from Avila, Sicily. I was a hermit in that diocese, and so I know Avila. I've been to Avila, and it's a very Catholic town. But there used to be a lot of landed estates there of the wealthy, and people made very, very little income because the wealthy didn't pay them much to farm the land, so they weren't treated so well.
Mm-hmm.
And alas, one of the problems in Europe were though the clergy supported the aristocracy and vice versa. The aristocracy are often unjust in the wages they paid to the poor, and the clergy remained quiet about it. And because of that, they lost a whole generation of faithful who left and never came back to the faith. And still to this day, think that the clergy are in favor of people exploiting us. In our own day, when the clergy are in favor of the people that are putting masks on our faces, injecting us with dangerous vaccines, and locking us up in houses, we can commiserate with that dissent. Okay, and we need to pray for priests that be holy, and we need holy priests that are true men of God, which doesn't mean they're in favor of the people in power. That means that they're in favor of justice of all kinds and to all people. What more do we know about this Aliyah?
Well, in the face of rumored threats of summary justice, which is let's see, still it was still early 1900s, they still had a sense of old-fashioned Western justice. You killed our priest, now we're coming for you.
You mean they like hang him from the nearest tree?
Yep. So the Denver law enforcement moved Elliott to Colorado Springs for his protection. Dr. Joseph Cuno, former Italian consul in Denver, and then consul Baron Gustav Tosti, also a physician, testified that they thought Alia was insane. The prosecution expert said he was not. Alia was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to be hanged. Alia never expressed any remorse and made 2 escape attempts from death row. The first involved the attempted murder of a prison trustee, the second of the prison deputy warden. In both cases, however, Alia was overpowered by correction officers soon after leaving his cell. However, Denver police officers expressed the belief that local anarchists had smuggled the knives Ali had used into the Colorado State Penitentiary. Following Alia's first escape attempt, the Italian consul Baron Gustavo Tosti was interviewed. The Baron expressed the belief that Alia's behavior proved him to be mentally deranged. Even so, the Baron declared, "I have no intention of appealing to the Italian government, or of trying to make this an international affair. It is purely a local case."
Yeah, so because the U.S. and Italy had a treaty that he could appeal a sentence and be extradited. The anarchists, if you don't know, were like the Antifa Black Lives Matter of a century ago, and they wanted to destroy all authority, but they were an organization that was of the extreme left, and they were supported by the Masonic lodges, and that's why they went on killing Catholic priests and other such positions of authority. I think Van Buren was assassinated in 1899, and the assassin in that case was a Jewish anarchist. So here we have a Sicilian anarchist, but anarchism, it was an ideology of the age, kind of like it sought to be provocative. It sought to commit atrocities against the ruling class, so the ruling class would commit atrocities against the poor and then start a communist revolution. That was the objective about it. Yet, back in 1908, though, in Colorado, they had swift justice, didn't they? When did this guy, he was arrested on the 23rd, 1908, February 23rd, 1908, and when did he get his sentence?
Giuseppe was hanged on July 15th, 1908, at the Colorado State Penitentiary in Canyon City, and the Washington Herald reported Alia's execution as follows. He went to the gallows fighting, biting, snarling. The night noises of the penitentiary had died away when Warden Cleghorn summoned the murderer from his cell and through an interpreter told him that the hour of his death had arrived. Alia stood for just a moment glaring at the warden and the attendants. Then he raised his head, utters a string of oaths, and offered his best physical resistance to accompanying the guards to the gallows. The murderer was held by the warden's assistants until he had exhausted himself. Then he was supported to the trap, where the noose was adjusted, and he was hanged.
On the 15th of July, which is the rededication of the Holy Sepulchre, the day the Crusaders took Jerusalem. So they chose a symbolic day to do that, to avenge the death of a Catholic priest, a friar. And so I thanked it. After essentially, I'll thank the Colorado authorities for that. Shows you how different things today. The trial would have gone for years, and then they probably find him, some excuse not to punish him. But justice was still Christian enough back then to work. So that wasn't the end of Father Leo's memory, no, was it?
No. After the solemn high mass requiem in Denver, Heinrichs' body was transported by rail to St. Bonaventure's Monastery in Paterson, New Jersey. Thousands of people attended the wake and mass. He was buried in Totowa, New Jersey's Holy Sepulchre Roman Catholic Cemetery.
Beautiful. And so is that where he still lies?
Yep. You can, and on the show page here, we have found the page for Find This Grave, and you can view it online. And if you sign up to become a member there on the whatever website, you can leave messages or virtual flowers, whatever.
So when did his cause for canonization start? We know.
Heinrichs' cause for beatification was opened in 1938, and his grave continues to be visited by pilgrims. And 1938 was between Pius XI and Pius XII, and there was a little. What did you say yesterday about it? Why they didn't push it forward?
The Second World War was ready to break out. There was a lot of anti-German sentiment in the United States. So beatifying a German who was killed by an Italian would be like, throwing gasoline on the fire. There was a lot of prejudice against Italians back then. And not too many years before, two Italian brothers were lynched in Providence, Rhode Island, having been accused of something they didn't do. The Zengetti brothers, the Zengaretti brothers, if I remember. So the clergy probably chose not to put it, but those times have passed now, and I think we should remember Father Leo. So he was, when was he declared a servant of God?
They don't say, but he does have the title servant of God.
So the next step would be venerable, and then after that would be beatification. They're probably now waiting for miracles, demonstrated evidence of a miracle to canonize him. So here's a saint. Here's a holy man of the United States, a potential martyr. I would say he was a martyr because he was killed out of hatred for the faith. And both in Denver, Colorado, and Paterson, New Jersey, and Tonawa, New Jersey, you can visit him. And then there's his hometown in Germany. So there's 4 places would be devoted to him. I think the parish there in Denver has something on their website about him, don't they?
Yeah, just a little bit of history on the website. Boy, after Vatican II, they sure destroyed that parish.
Yeah, so I would say Father Leo could be a patron for parish restorations too, because he died at the altar railing, bending over to pick up the hosts that had been carelessly and viciously cast aside. And he died before the side altar of Our Lady, which most churches don't even have anymore. So here's and we can't forget he died saying what we would call today the Tridentine Mass. And it would be in the Franciscan, because in the Franciscan order, we follow the Roman Missal. So there's a lot of points there to Father Leo, his name. Probably took the name Leo because it was the pontificate of Leo XIII back then when he became a friar. And so, wonderful example. And he was known to really help the poor, wasn't he? What were some of the things we know about him?
He helped the poor, he helped the sick, he went out with the lumberjacks. He also, while he was in Denver, he would hand out food to the hungry every morning.
So he's a saint for a lot of different reasons, whether you're suffering from a disease or you're a worker, whether you live in the countryside or the city, whether you're a poor person begging, and whether you are involved in charitable work for the poor. There's a lot of things there. And let's not forget, he forsook his family and his country and his language to serve Christ. And there are not many men in history who have done that. That's something really great. That is a lot. That means a lot in the sight of God. That's following in the footsteps of Abraham and many saints, like St. Francis Xavier, who carried the faith to the Orient, and Father Leo carried the faith to the Rockies. So another patron saint of the Rockies. Although he is a servant of God, we previously did a program. AJ, you previously did some programs though on Father Demetz, who's I don't think a servant of God, but
the St. Louis Jesuits wouldn't have that.
Maybe one day. He did a lot of great things too. So, thank you for having me on for this program about the servant of God, Friar Leo Heinrichs.
You're welcome. This is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.